Coming home. Dowd. Beloved. 3. Dedication. Victory. As we approach the lyrics of the 30th Mizmor/Psalm, it is apparent that we are being drawn back into the scene of the then future and now past fulfillment of Passover and unyeasted bread, leading to firstborn children. And like the others the Messiah has composed, Dowd conveys the ordeal in first person to more vividly express what he was perceiving and enduring as the lone eyewitness capable of recording what occurred. As with the 22nd Mizmor, which dramatizes the excruciating tortures of Roman crucifixion on Pesach, the lyrics of the 30th take us into the depths of Sheol hell so that we might witness what occurred during the fulfillment of Matzah. And fortunately, as we are about to discover, since there was no way to communicate from Sheol, this witness comes to us on Bikurim after being released and returning to his father. By the time we are hearing of what transpired, it is a memory. A Mizmor song, Mizmor, lyrics accompanied by music, to be sung, SHYR, for the dedication to disciplined instruction, Hanukkah, with a commitment to teaching what is honorable and special, of the family home, Ha-Baith, the house and household, of Dowd, La Dowd, the beloved. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 dedication. Hanukkah Ha-Baith is the home of devoted learning for the family who understands. Hanukkah speaks of being dedicated to studying and committed to teaching. The tagline, La Dowd, could be read that this is the house of Dowd. Or, it could be said that this song regarding the dedication of the house of instruction was composed by the beloved. While the natural inclination is to consider the second, the first is actually more appropriate. Our Messiah and King, Shepherd and Savior, Son of God and Prophet, was also a songwriter extraordinaire. And while he did not build the first home of God, he acquired the summit of Mount Moriah where it would be erected by his son. He accumulated the materials and worked out the plans with his father. And now we know that he composed the song that would be sung at its dedication. And this being the case, we will return to Shalomoah's dedication address for the house of Yahowah in 2 Chronicles 6 at the conclusion of this Mizmor which was scribed and sung on this occasion. The opening statement is how all who come to know Yahowah perceive our relationship with him. God never fails to impress. I am always proud of you and continually honor you, Rum, Ada, I lift you up and exalt you, reaching up to you, Polel imperfect first person singular, Yahowah benefits from Dowd's approach, Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, because truly, KY, surely, emphasizing the importance of this statement, you have lifted me up and withdrawn me. From the depths, Dala, Eni, you have drawn me out, pulling me up from a deep pit, saving me and not allowing me to languish while providing a wellspring of understanding pertaining to the doorway entering the home, Peel perfect second person masculine singular. And you have not allowed anyone adversarial to me to rejoice over me, while lo, Samak, Oyeb, Eni La, Eni, you have prevented those who would defame me from celebrating because of me. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 1. There is only one man in human history who could say of God, you have lifted me up and withdrawn me from the depths, saving me by pulling me out of the pit so that I would not languish there. And this is because after Dowd's Nepesh soul carried our guilt with him into Sheol hell on Matzah to perfect us, Yahowah released his son from the pit, raising the Messiah to the heights of Shemaim heaven. Therefore, by saying this, Dowd is affirming that he fulfilled unyeasted bread and firstborn children following his Passover sacrifice. This is the only scenario that fits this narrative, making it profoundly important. Dala is an interesting word to translate. In all three of its appearances in the Torah, the discussion pertains to the 7 daughters of a Midian priest. They were protected by Moses when trying to draw water while shepherding their father's flock. This story, in which Dala plays its part, provides a wonderful insight into Moses' exemplary character. He risked his own life to protect women he did not even know from a gang of hostile men. The only other time Dala appears, Dowd uses it in Mashal/Proverbs 20 as it is deployed here. He writes, profoundly deep and well below the surface of the waters is advice and counsel regarding the plan in a person's thinking and judgment, and an intelligent individual who understands draws it out, Dala. Mashal 20:5, I can assure you that the 30th Psalm will live up to that billing. Also revealing, Dala is scribed identically to Dala the door which provides entry into a home. In the context of dedicating the home of understanding, knowing how to enter the house as a result of the fulfillment of Pesach and Matzah is germane to the discussion. Pulling this all together, I rather like the rendering, you have withdrawn me from the depths, providing a wellspring of understanding pertaining to a doorway entering the home. Now moving to the third expression of the opening refrain, Oyeb addresses anyone who is adversarial. In the plural, they are enemies. And with his people benefiting from what he and his father accomplished by fulfilling the initial Mikri, Dowd had 3 individual and institutional foes, Paul and Christianity, Akiba and Judaism, and Muhammad and Islam. However, they would not get the last laugh. Samak, which means, to celebrate and rejoice, was negated. Therefore, those who would plunder the Messiah to advance their fraudulent claims remained frustrated that Dowd was drawn out of the depths. By God having done so, the purpose of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim is as obvious as is the identity of the man who fulfilled them. While I have come to do so, I readily acknowledge that it is hard for most to fathom why the king would volunteer to subject himself to such torment and even more difficult to perceive why Yahowah would allow his son to suffer such things. But since both obviously occurred and are irrefutably documented, it is incumbent upon us to contemplate the reasons this would be so. From God's perspective, he was incapable of fulfilling any of these moedim on his own. Regarding Pesach, he does not have a physical body, his enormity will not fit in the universe he created, much less within a single being, and God cannot die. Pursuant to Matzah, Yahowah, by definition, cannot go to the place of separation from himself and he cannot be associated with man's religious and political guilt. And while God wants a family, he could not fulfill Bikurim because God cannot be born. Therefore, for Yahowah's plan of salvation to work, he would have to fulfill the micro-EY in tandem with exceptionally compassionate, courageous, and capable men. These responsible individuals would also have to be reasonably bright because they would have to discern that God and his people needed them to perform in this manner, with only the Torah and prophets to illuminate the path and influence their decision. But even more than this, since Yahowah is insistent upon free will, these same individuals would have to perceive that doing so was not only the right decision for everyone involved, but also that it was in their personal interests to do so. It is my assessment that Dowd came to realize he was the right person to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim when, after hearing God refer to him as his son whose throne would endure forever, he read how Yahowah resolved the problem of the lack of a lamb for the sacrifice on Moriah to establish the covenant 1,000 years earlier, thereby sparing Abraham's son, Yitzhak. It was when he contemplated all that Moses endured leading the unruly, ungrateful, and obnoxious Yisraelites from slavery to the promised land and then compared this to their rebellious nature under his leadership that he realized fulfilling Pesach and Match would be the best way to galvanize their trust and respect. And only then, when everyone realized that they were still living because of what he had done, would the impossible be possible. While he would agonize over what he would endure for 1,000 years, and even write about it, once begun, the suffering would be over in 30 hours. Therefore, the calculation was horrifyingly and joyously simple. He would volunteer to allow the beast of Rome to crucify his body from noon to sunset on Pesach and then to consent to have his soul be burdened with our guilt, such that he could deposit it in Sheol, remaining there between the sunsets comprising Matzah. As a result, he would earn every beneficiary's respect for all eternity. It makes perfect sense. Removing any doubt that we are listening to the voice of the king whose Nepesh soul went into and was removed from Sheol hell during the fulfillment of Matzah. Yahowah, Yahowah, God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, my God, Elohim Eni, I had implored you to assist me in the moment, Shawa, El, Ada, to you, I had made a request to be released and to find relief, crying out with intensity for a finite period in time, Peel perfect first person singular, and you restored me forevermore, Warafa Eni, so you healed me, resolving the problem and making me acceptable, you repaired the damage and brought recovery which is still ongoing. Mizmor/Psalm 30 verse 2. Yahowah, Yahowah, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, in a moment in time, you facilitated the withdrawal and the raising, Allah, in a once and done situation, you caused the lifting up and carrying away, Haiful perfect, of my soul, Nepesh Eni, of my consciousness, my ability to observe what is happening around me and respond, out of Sheol hell, Min Sheol, from the place of questioning and begging of the eternally separated, a lightless and perpetual prison of no return for souls and spirits akin to a black hole. In an instant, you brought me back to life, Chaya Eni, at that moment, you restored and preserved my life, reviving me, causing me to recover and be alive, Peel perfect second person masculine singular, away from those who are cast down, Min Yared, out of those who come down and are diminished, Cal participle masculine plural, serving as a verbal adjective and, thus, indicative of expressive action, to the pit, the lightless prison, Bor, to the dungeon for prisoners. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 3. The Nepesh soul of the individual who wrote the lyrics of this song and made this claim was in Sheol on God's business and then removed. And this means that Dowd entered the depths of hell to fulfill Matzah after suffering through Pesach. That is not only the best explanation of these two statements, it is the only plausible depiction. So that there is no misunderstanding, humans are comprised of a physical body, Nepesh consciousness, and a neshama conscience. Our Nepesh is the essence of our life. Without it, we cease to exist. Our soul is the reservoir of our personality, thinking, feelings, experiences, memories, attitudes, and aptitudes. We all have one. Some are better than others. So why has everyone been oblivious to the obvious? While discussing these things, it is helpful to know that we humans are comprised of three elements. Our Nepesh consciousness resides within our base, our corporeal bodies, while our neshama conscience guides our thinking. The latter is a tool, something that not only makes us human, differentiating us from other animals, it provides us with the ability to discern right from wrong. When deployed properly, it enables us to be moral, judgmental, and rational. We can use our neshama to help our Nepesh find, understand, and connect with Yahowah. We can also use it to determine the identity of the Nepesh soul who endured Pesach and Matzah. Our physical bodies are important to us while we reside trapped in the ordinary flow of time in the mortal realm. Take good care of yours. However, for us to go beyond 3 dimensions to 6 in traveling throughout the universe and then 7 when entering Shemaim, we must jettison everything physical. Our Nepesh and Neshama represent the entirety of who we are, and these aspects of our nature are all Yahowah allows to enter heaven, or hell. In this case, Dowd's Nepesh, once dispatched to fulfill Matzah, would be essentially incommunicado with Yahowah until Bikurim. And yet, I suspect that Yahowah envisioned a way to monitor his son's situation, thereby assuring Dowd that this would be over soon and that he would return to heaven. This might be somewhat similar to what NASA's engineers experience when their planetary probes go off and explore alien worlds, albeit this Nepesh would have feelings, thoughts, personality, and a sentient consciousness, making this an interesting comparison to the exchange between Hal and Dr. David Bowman as they converse throughout their voyage to Jupiter in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And while I think we will discover a more fitting variation of this theory, there is no question that a soul could communicate in this manner with the proper receptor. This was something that had to be done because it will always be well beneath God to be unjust or allow himself to be exposed to human corruption. Since he wants to raise us as his children, our guilt would have to be removed. The idea of carrying it to Sheol, where nothing escapes, was a brilliant solution. And the Messiah's sacrificial death on Pesach paid the price for us to live. The result was Bikurim, lots of immortal and perfected children. Under the plan of the Micra EY, it would be enough for one body and soul to serve in this way. The Basar would fulfill Pesach offering life while his Nepesh removed our guilt. There will never be another. Every child of the covenant has Dowd to thank for the disposition of their soul. It is something we should all recognize, appreciate, and celebrate. You should choose to strum an instrument and sing a song, zammer, of your own volition, make music, peel imperative second-person masculine plural, to Yahowah, YAHOWah, to God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, as his dedicated and set apart, his zealous and godly ones, Chasidhu, those seeking his favor and mercy, while showing that you want to express your appreciation for the influence and awareness, Yada, and you should choose to publicly and openly exclaim your gratitude for his uncommonly special, Kodesh Hu, renown, reputation, and name, Lazikr, status, way of being recalled and remembered, even for recalling the memory of this event. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 4. It would be, and now has been, the most glorious and beneficial act in the history of the universe. Fulfilling Pesach and Matzah opens the door to walking away from the crippling and deadly institutions of religion and politics, making our souls immortal, all while our errors in judgment are removed and our souls are perfected. We should celebrate, even join the Messiah in singing a song to Yahowah in appreciation for his gift. It is, therefore, important to announce that Dowd was not writing this song to celebrate the dedication of the temple but, instead, to fill his father's home with children. There would be billions of buildings but only one covenant family. And while even stone buildings crumble over time, life in the Berith is forever. It would be just over a day, but the implications would reverberate throughout eternity. We know it, and so did our king. Indeed, for an instant, KY Riga, truly for only a moment, a very brief period of time, his angst and displeasure were intense, Afu, his grievance and righteous indignation, for a lifetime and for the living, Chaim, for lives and renewal, he is pleased and accepting, Ratzon Hu, he is approving and makes amends. With the sunset and ensuing darkness, Hath Ereb, as the light diminishes, there would be a night of enduring sorrow and bitter humiliation, Lin Baki, a dark period of genuinely regrettable weeping and tears, but toward the morning and the dawn's early light, La Haboker, there would be the joy of having overcome, Rina, jubilation and singing over the sacrifice, a time of celebration and even a legitimate reason for justifiable pride. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 5. As the sun set on Pesach, and the torturous agony of crucifixion ended, the Messiah's Nepesh consciousness descended into Sheol hell carrying the burden of our guilt. He had experienced the consequence of mankind's political and religious revolt against God, which is death, and now he would endure the penalty for this rebellion, separation. As the lyrics profess, it would be as the sun's light first caressed Maria during the morning of Bikurim that this rare soul was freed. He had overcome, for all of us. I must now confess the error of my ways. I was initially stumped on how to deal with what has arisen. Nepesh soul is feminine in Hebrew, but the individual providing the consciousness was a man. To accommodate this in Hebrew, every reference to the speaker is first-person singular, with gender undisclosed as either masculine or feminine. So, I could refer to the ultimate Nepesh as an it, but that sounds so impersonal. While Yahowah has a vitally important feminine aspect to his nature, the Ruach Kodesh set-apart spirit, as our spiritual mother, plays a different role in this drama. She conveyed Dowd's Nepesh consciousness from Pesach into Matzah and back home on Bikurim, from earth to heaven with a short stay in hell along the way. Clearly, we should acknowledge that women are better suited for some things because they are more pain-tolerant and are better at multitasking, even superior in making sacrifices for the family. And yet, the Passover lamb is male, and so was the man whose body was crucified. Therefore, I cannot refer to this Nepesh as a woman any more than Dowd could in writing this because good men celebrate the differences between men and women that make us both better. For now, especially considering the options available to us in English, I will resume using he because she is misleading and it isn't appropriate. And when we think of she in this drama, she is the Ruach, the facilitator, not the Nepesh who suffered through the ordeal. Just as the Nepesh souls of the Berith covenant family will enjoy an eternity in the Shemaim heavens, so will this Nepesh. As for me, I expressed, Amar, I said at that moment, Cal perfect first-person singular, during my now tranquil and secure, indeed, satisfying circumstance, Shalu my quiet relief over my productive achievement and having succeeded, I will never again be removed, slipping into a troubling and unfavorable place, Balmoth, I will not be shaken or fall, I will never lose control or be taken down and oppressed, Nifel imperfect first-person singular, for all eternity, La. Aulam, forevermore. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 6. One and done. There would be no need for a repeat performance. That is the beauty of the Micra and the Berith it enables. The physical Basar of the Pesach Isle, which this Nepesh was occupying, was sacrificed, something of no value in heaven and incompatible with eternal life. And since Dowd's soul lived on, nothing of value was lost and nothing worthwhile was retained on earth. The bludgeoned flesh was incinerated during the night. When the Messiah breathed the last breath of his second of 3 lives, body and soul were separated. At this moment, Dowd cited his own 22nd Mizmor, directing our attention to his explanation of what was occurring and why he was enduring it. In the fleeting moments of Pesach, as the last rays of the setting sun graced Maria, the Ruach Kodesh burdened the Messiah's soul with the guilt of the covenant family and then escorted Dowd's consciousness to the darkness of Sheol. This occurred as matzah unyeasted bread was just beginning. And since there would be a lot of guilt to unpack, Dowd would endure the darkness and separation for 24 hours, on earth. But if Sheol is akin to a black hole, as I suspect, it would have seemed like minutes. Then, the second the sun set in Jerusalem, and long before the city of Dowd would experience the emerging light of a new day, it would be time to celebrate the ingathering that is Bikurim firstborn children. And therefore, the light our Savior experienced at this moment came from the set-apart spirit. Having delivered the covenant's benefits by fulfilling Pesach and Matzah, the king's Nepesh soul left Sheol and returned to Shemaim to celebrate his achievement with his father. Having been removed from the best of places and sent to the worst of them, the Nepesh had come back home. This is the conversation that ensued between them. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, by your acceptance and favor, Ba Ratzon Ada, with your approval and decision to be genuinely pleased by this event, accepting it as completely satisfactory, you caused the mountain to be present and accounted for. Taking a stand at this time, Amad Lahar, you made it possible for the mount to sustain and endure, standing upright and firm, hyphal perfect second person masculine singular, prevailing by mightily strengthening and empowering, Oz. However, when you concealed your presence for that moment, Sathar Pana Ada, when your appearance disappeared in an instant, vanishing, hyphal perfect second person masculine singular, for a time, I was horrified and terrified, alarmed, anguished, and anxious, Hayabahal, I existed for that finite period overwhelmed, despondent, bewildered, and afraid, alert and in a tremendous hurry to hasten the torture. Cal perfect first person singular. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 7. The mountain was not named because its identity is obvious to those who know and love Yahuwah and Dowd. There was no need to write in the 30th Mizmor/Psalm that the Har is Mount Moriah respect Yah, commonly known as Moriah. It became special when 40 Yobel, or 2,000 years, after Adam and Chawah's expulsion from Gan Eden the Garden of Great Joy, the father of the covenant family asked Abraham and Yitzchak to come to Mount Moriah to observe the first Passover, during which Yahuwah provided the lamb. This occurred in the Yobel year, when debts are forgiven, people are freed, and all can return to the land, of 2000 Yah, 1968 BCE. Yahuwah's Berith was confirmed at this time, creating the family of God. While that was a giant stride in the right direction, we humans would still need a path back to Eden, a way to come back to God. So, 20 Yobel after establishing the covenant, its most important son would lay claim to Jerusalem, building the city of Dowd on Moriah. He would even acquire the threshing floor which would become home to Yahuwah's home on earth near the summit of Moriah. It is also noteworthy to report that Dowd's son, Shalomo, would lay the cornerstone of the Beit that would bear Yahuwah's name in 968 BCE, precisely 1,000 years to the day God established the family through the covenant who would live in it. Then, in the Yobel year of 4,000 Yah, God honored the promise he had made to Abraham and Yitzchak while they were on Moriah, likely within a stride of the same place the lamb had appeared 40 Yobel before. Therefore, the Son of God fulfilled the initial Mikra as Yahuwah's firstborn when he served as the Passover lamb. With his son having honored Pesach's promise to remove the covenant family from the deadly nature of religious and political oppression, God incinerated the remains of the sacrificial victim serving as the lamb on Moriah. But even before this occurred, he had the Ruach Kodesh escort the king's Nepesh into Sheol on Matzah. Dowd's soul was laden with our guilt in order to perfect us. But that is not the end of the story because at the dawn of Bikurim, even before the first rays of light streaked across Mount Moriah, the Ruach returned the Nepesh, bringing God's beloved son, Dowd, home. And so in this way, Yahuwah's Bakar firstborn became the first of many to enjoy Bikurim firstborn children. In these marvelous ways, the mountain of God was present and accounted for. This is the place where the Nepesh, who had resided there 2,000 years ago, took the ultimate stand on our behalf. And it is to this very place that he will return. From this perspective, the story that unfolds and plays out on Moriah provides a beautiful portrait of our Savior's devotion to his people and the covenant family. But at what price? For the king, the fulfillment of Chag Matzah was agonizing beyond measure, but the worst part of the ordeal is that after being tortured by the beast of Rome and then isolated in Sheol hell to carry away our guilt, his own people rejected him. They vociferously denied what he had done. They even replaced him. The uplifting and loving relationship he enabled withered, choked out by an oppressive religion. With Yahuwah's propensity for coming full circle and his preference for foreshadowing one event with another, there are elements of what Dowd experienced on Moriah during Chag Matzah that will be witnessed again on the morn of Towrah 40 Yobel thereafter. The setting will again be Moriah. It will be a Yobel year. The Mikra will be enjoyed at sunset, while the sacrifice will occur during the day. As was the case with Pesach, so will it be with Towrah, albeit the meal that provides life will be played out as an ingathering of eternal life. In both cases, Dowd and Yada would summon the beast that would kill them. And through the sacrifice of two replaceable and corruptible Basar, two eternally perfected Nepesh would emerge. Both mortal lives would be taken as a public spectacle, and both bodies would be incinerated. Yahuwah spoke of what both men would do in his Torah and prophets long before the sacrifices were made. And in both situations, God's relationship with these men was developed and matured long before he would allow them to perceive what they would ultimately volunteer to accomplish. And, of course, both men would write vociferously about what they would endure, even as the overwhelming preponderance of people continue to dismiss and demean them. While the climactic chapters of this story are all about these men and the roles they play to prepare willing souls to abide in Yahuwah's presence, they are responsible for less than a trillionth of what God achieves through them. But since it is in Yahuwah's nature to celebrate what he can achieve through the likes of Abraham, Noach, Moses, Dowd, and Yada, we read all about them. Because building and raising the covenant family is the desired result, God knows that he can achieve more by crediting others than he can by working alone. And by drawing Yisrael's attention to these individuals, indeed, by commending them to those reading his love letters to his family, God is ensuring the best possible outcome. Living in this, the most brilliant of spotlights, is intimidating. It not only showcases our strengths, but it also reveals our weaknesses and flaws, making us vulnerable. It may be why the Israelites told God to go away during the exodus from slavery to the Promised Land. To preclude this from affecting Moses, Dowd, and Yada, Yahowah imbued them with his ruach, encouraging and empowering, fortifying and protecting them. Nevertheless, living with this responsibility became too much for all of them. And that is why there are also differences between how Yahowah would deploy them. The belligerent, antagonistic, and self-destructive nature of the Israelites became so suffocating and overwhelming, Moses was retired. And even Dowd, as great as he was, found it difficult to overcome the internal insurrection orchestrated by his son against his authority. But in those situations, there would be time, lots of it, to let the potential of what God was offering through them sink into the skulls of his resolutely stubborn people. There would be nearly 3,500 years from the revelation of the Torah, 3,000 years from Dowd's initial life and lyrics, and 2,000 years from his fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. But there would only be 32 years from God introducing himself to Yada to the end of the play. And during that time, since he would be a witness and not a prophet, he would have to learn and teach, learn about his purpose and then write about it. One ruach wouldn't be nearly enough, 7 spirits would be required to achieve the desired result. And more limiting still, from the final Zerah's sacrifice, there would be just 10 days left prior to Yahowah's return with his son. With this short time remaining to prepare his people for his homecoming and family reunion, with no room for second chances or failure, and with the fate of the covenant and the planet on the line, rest assured, Yahowah will re-engage miraculously. But be aware, should you still be on the sidelines and reading this, determined to see it all play out before you commit, relatively few of those living today will survive to witness any of this play out on the Temple Mount. Therefore, even though God will augment the voice of his witnesses with his own at this time, don't risk the fate of your soul on being there to respond. The time is right now. As we move to the next statement, I will underscore a reality that I've suspected for a long time but did not publicly acknowledge in my role as the King's Herald until 2022, just 4 years in advance of the Shabat harvest which marks the beginning of the time of Jacob's troubles. Previously, I was not ready to say it, and you were not prepared to hear it either. And this is because until we understand Dowd's and Yahowah's underlying motivations, we simply cannot process this profoundly important treasure. But now, here we are, and it's past time that everyone who wants to live with Yahowah comes to appreciate why the 22nd Mizmor was written in first person by Dowd. We need to understand why it was the Messiah, presented as Gabriel, God's most capable and courageous man, who spoke of himself fulfilling Passover and unyeasted bread in Daniel 9. To be part of forever, we must ponder the reasons why the story of the sacrificial lamb in Yeshayah/Isaiah 53 was presented after asking the reader to ponder the insights of the man who came to expose the identity of the 3 Zerah. It's long past time to expose and condemn the religious counterfeits of the Messiah while revealing all that can be known about the man who made the greatest contribution to our lives. Let's deal with fact and be reasonable in answering the question as to why there are no prophecies pertaining to Jesus or Allah, and yet, they abound pertaining to Dowd. At long last, let's admit and acknowledge that the Basar Nepesh writing the lyrics to this song knew what he was talking about because he was there, and not just as an eyewitness to his fate. To you, Yada Yahowah, Yahowah, God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, I was appointed to call out and continually proclaim the summons and to make the invitations known pursuant to the Mikra Kara, I am mentioned and named when reading and reciting the offers to meet and be welcomed. Cal imperfect first person singular. And with Yahowah, Yahowah, God's proper designation pronounced as instructed by his Torah, guidance on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, from 4 QPs versus the MT which has Adoni, my Lord, even alone and unassisted for a while, I am continually shown compassion, great kindness, enduring love, and loyal devotion, Channon, uninfluenced and independent in my decision to be generous, I have now received unrelenting adoration, Hitpeel. Imperfect first person singular. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 8. It is certain that Dowd was the one who is making this known to us through this song. The author of the Mizmor is summoning us back home and to his home on Moriah. He is inviting us to seek, meet, and be welcomed by his Father. He is saying that he was appointed to proclaim the appointments he would fulfill. While he would have been alone and unassisted while fulfilling Pesach and Matzah, now that the sacrifices are over and his Nepesh soul is enveloped in Yah's love, the Messiah can sing of his Father's Channon. Working together, Yahowah, the Ruach Kodesh, and the beloved firstborn Son carried out the most merciful and kind, ultimately compassionate act in the history of the universe. Once accomplished, justice would prevail. He paid the price to ransom and redeem the Berith family. Having endured the consequence, death, and the penalty, separation, for the covenant's children having been wrong and having missed the way, after the sacrifice, God could fairly, honorably, and justifiably save us from ourselves. And so now, here it is again, the ultimate admission. In what way is there a dishonest gain, deception, or an unfair advantage, ma betza, where is there an ill-gotten benefit or something unjust, even unrighteous, in my bloodshed, ba damn any, with being cast down, ba yared, in being abandoned and subjugated after descending, cal infinitive construct, myself, any, toward the lightless prison, la shakath, approaching the darkness of the dungeon. Preposition from 4 QPs versus L in MT. Will the material realm, ha afar, will the soil of the ground, the natural elements or dust, choose to express its appreciation for you, Yada, Ada, extol and openly acknowledge your influence, hyphal imperfect third person masculine singular Joseph? Will it be informative and announce, ha nagad, will it report the message, hyphal imperfect third person masculine singular, your trustworthiness and enduring reliability, emeth, Ada, your dependability, honesty, loyalty, and integrity? Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 9. Yahowah conceived and Dowd enabled a plan to perfect the imperfect that was forthright and fair, easy to articulate and appreciate. One would die for many to live. One would carry our guilt away to perfect an entire family. There would be no dishonesty, no capriciousness, no suppression of evidence or reason. There was no deception because the truth was revealed in considerable detail long before any of this occurred. And in this regard, consider Moses' Torah Exhibit T, Dowd's Mizmor Exhibit M, the prophets like Yashaya Exhibit P, and now the books under the YAHOWAH brand as Exhibit Y. We not only know why the Zerah's blood was shed on Pesach but also why he was cast down on Matzah. And while these profoundly credible witnesses should have been more than sufficient to reveal the most exquisite treasure, it remained hidden in plain sight until now. By witnessing this discovery for yourself, one even more valuable than finding the Ark of the Covenant, you should want to immediately express your appreciation for YAHOWAH and Dowd. Because they were trustworthy, we can rely on them. As difficult as it is for many to accept that this occurred and that YAHOWAH allowed Dowd's Basar and Nepesh to fulfill Passover and unyeasted bread leading to firstborn children, we are, nonetheless, drawn to embrace this conclusion by the plethora of statements worded in such a way that there is no other rational possibility. Clearly, obviously, openly, Dowd not only volunteered to fulfill these moedim, but he also made the same impassioned argument to YAHOWAH that he is now sharing with us. If Abraham's willingness to sacrifice his only son, Yitzhak, affirmed his commitment to the covenant, why wouldn't the same be true with YAHOWAH and his beloved firstborn son Dowd? And should someone protest that YAHOWAH prevented Abraham from sacrificing Yitzhak on Moriah, it was because he knew well in advance that he would be providing the perfect lamb. After all, YAHOWAH can see all of time at any moment in time. As a student of the Torah and as a prophet, Dowd would have known that the ordeal would be completed in slightly over 1 day, that YAHOWAH's great love for him would prevail, and that his Nepesh would return to Shemaim on Bikurim firstborn children, where he would have solidified the great distinction of being referred to as God's Bakar firstborn son. From YAHOWAH's perspective, offering to sacrifice his son's Basar corporeal body on Pesach, while enormously painful, particularly while watching the beast of Rome torture him as his people aimlessly passed by, would have been far more agonizing for YAHOWAH than it would have been to endure the ordeal personally. Similarly, even when the perceptions were reduced to minutes as hours ticked away on earth, the torment his son's Nepesh consciousness experienced during its separation in Sheol would have been horrific for his father to accept. However, since he could not go there himself, it could not be avoided. Knowing Dowd as we do, having listened to his conversations with his father, I don't think anyone could have talked him out of it, including God. The man who had prevailed in every battle would be victorious once again, and this time, the victory would be over death and separation for all time. So, Dowd asks, in what way is there a dishonest gain, deception, or an unfair advantage, anything unjust, ma betza, in my bloodshed, ba damn any, with being cast down, abandoned, and oppressed, ba yared, myself, any, toward the lightless prison, la shaketh. Myself, wrote the author, and that's impossible to deny. YAHOWAH's son and prophet, our Messiah and King, is trying to help us deal with all of this and fathom the implications. The lament was but for a moment, while his jubilation would last forever. He is proud of having contributed to the eternal life and perfection of his people. The king enthusiastically pleaded his case with his father and obviously prevailed. And this is because YAHOWAH was predisposed to his son's decision. He knew that it was tzaddak right. Moreover, Dowd would not act alone. God was and remains his biggest supporter. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, God's one and only name pronounced as guided by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence for our Shalom, reconciliation as our Eloah, God, you listened, Shama, you heard, Cal perfect second person masculine singular, from 4 QPs, and showed compassion, were merciful, and spared me, Chan and any, and generously favored me, Cal perfect, from 4 QPs. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, God's name transliterated as directed by his Torah, instructions on his Hayah, existence and his role in our Shalom, reconciliation, it was your will to exist as, Hayah, you want to be, Cal imperative second person masculine singular, my helper who supports and assists me, Azar la any. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 30 verse 10. YAHOWAH encourages us to Shama, listen to him. He's a lot smarter than we are. But there was one man whose voice YAHOWAH loved to hear, Dowd's. He wrote the lyrics to the songs God enjoys most. Dowd was both a son and a prophet. He knew that his father would bail him out, lift him up, and assist him in this way. And Dowd may be the lone man among us bold enough to call YAHOWAH, Azar la any, my helper, supporter, and assistant. Although, this is a role YAHOWAH cherishes and excels. As Dowd's song progresses, the destructive ordeal of Passover was now over and the great lament of Matzah was complete. Dowd was dancing before his father. It was then that his ordinary clothes were removed so that he could be dressed for the occasion. What better robes for the king of Eden to wear than those representing the great joy celebrated by all he has brought back to the garden? He will serve as the king of Sukkah camping out, after all. You have overwhelmingly changed, transforming, Hafek, you have turned being destroyed and demolished and flipped the contrarian nature of, Cal perfect second person masculine singular, my wailing lamentation, Misafat any, my shrieking and howling, to dancing all around, La Makhow, of joyous movements while pondering the anguishing pain, for me, La any. You have loosened and released, Patach, you have opened and freed, Peel perfect, my sackcloth of common clothing, Sack any, my coarse and humiliating apparel, and you have girded me, Wa Azar any, you have continually equipped and encompassed me, clothing me, Peel imperfect, in delightful happiness and pleasurable gladness, Simcha, cheerfulness and jubilation in the most favorable of circumstances, Mizmor 30:11, so that, as a result, Laman, I can continually sing, Zamar, of you. Ada, as honorable and rewarding, glorious and powerful, Kabod, as tremendously important and wonderfully enriching. And by never being silent or unresponsive, Wallo, damn, never ceasing, never stopping, never resting or still, Kalim perfect, my God, Elohim any, forevermore, La Alam, throughout eternity, I will continually express my appreciation to you for your influence in my life and for casting me down and then lifting me up, Yada Yahowah. I publicly confess my gratitude for being taken down and then extolled, hyphal imperfect first person singular energic non jussive pedagogicum energicus. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 30 verse 12. He earned it. He deserves it. And best of all, because of what he has done, we can all dance and sing alongside our beloved Zeroah, eternally happy, having returned to Eden. Amazingly, Dowdingly, rather than take credit for what he had done, this remarkable son directed all of the accolades at his father who had made it possible. He had trusted his father more in this than anything else, and he had proven himself reliable. So here now, for your consideration, is the 30th Mizmor, complete and without interruption. Enjoy. A song, SHYR, dedicated to disciplined instruction with a commitment to teaching what is honorable and special, Hanukkah, of the family home and household, Ha-Baith, of Dowd, La Dowd. I am always proud of you and continually honor you, Rom, Yada, Yahowah, Yahowah, because truly, emphasizing the importance of this statement, KY, you have lifted me up and withdrawn me from the depths, not allowing me to languish, while providing a wellspring of understanding pertaining to the doorway entering the home, Dala, Any. And you have not allowed anyone adversarial to me to rejoice over me, preventing those who would defame me from celebrating over me, while lo, Samak, Oyeb, Any La, Any. Mizmor 30:1. Yahowah, Yahowah, my God, Elohim any, I had implored you to assist me in the moment to find relief, Shawa, El, Ada, and you restored me forevermore, Warafa any. Mizmor 30:2. Yahowah, Yahowah, in a moment in time, you facilitated the withdrawal and the raising, Allah, of my soul, my consciousness, my ability to observe what is happening around me and respond, Nipesh any, out of Shial hell, Min Shial. In an instant, you brought me back to life, Chaya any, away from those who are cast down and diminished, Min Yered, to the pit, the lightless prison, Bor. Mizmor 30:3. You should choose to strum an instrument and sing a song, Zamar, to Yahowah, La Yahowah, his dedicated and zealous who are set-apart recipients of his mercy, Chasid who, while showing that you want to express your appreciation for the influence and awareness, Yada, of his exceedingly uncommon and special, Kodesh who, renown, reputation, and name, as well as for recalling this event, La Zikr. Mizmor 30:4. Indeed, for an instant, KY Riga, his frustration and angst were intense, Ba, Afu, for a lifetime and for the living, Chaim, he is pleased and accepting, Ba Ratzonhu. With the sunset and ensuing darkness, Ba Ha Ereb, there was a night of enduring sorrow and bitter humiliation, Lin Baki, but toward the morning with the dawn's early light, La Haboker, there was joy at having overcome, jubilation and singing over the sacrifice during a time of celebration providing a legitimate reason for justifiable pride, Rina. Mizmor 30:5. As for me, Any, I expressed, Amar, during my now tranquil and secure, indeed, satisfying circumstance, having succeeded, Ba Shalu Any, I will never again be removed, slipping into a troubling and unfavorable place, Balmoth, for all eternity, La Alam. Mizmor 30:6. Yahowah, Yahowah, by your acceptance and favor, with your approval and decision to be genuinely pleased by this event, accepting it as completely satisfactory, Ba Ratzon Ada, you caused the mountain to be present and accounted for, taking a stand at this time, Amad Lahar, prevailing by mightily strengthening and empowering, Oz. However, when you concealed your presence for that moment, Sathar Pana Ada, for a time, I was anguished and anxious, in a tremendous hurry to hasten the torture, Hayabahal. Mizmor 30:7. To you, El, Ada, Yahowah, Yahowah, I was appointed to call out and continually proclaim the summons and to make the invitations known, and I am mentioned by name when reading the offers to meet, Kara. And with, El, Yahowah, Yahowah, even alone and unassisted for a while, I am continually shown compassion, great kindness, enduring love, and loyal devotion, Channon. Mizmor 30:8. In what way is there a dishonest gain, deception, or an unfair advantage, Mabetza, in my bloodshed, Ba Dam Any, with being cast down and alone, Ba Yared, myself, Any, toward the lightless prison, La Shakath /. Will the material realm, Ha Afar, choose to express its appreciation for you, Yada, Ada? Will it be informative and announce, Ha Nagad, your trustworthiness and enduring reliability, Emeth Ada? Mizmor 30:9. Yahowah, Yahowah, you listened, Shama, and showed compassion, were merciful, and spared me, Channon Any. Yahowah, Yahowah, it was your will to exist as, Haya, my helper who supports and assists me, Azar La Any. Mizmor 30:10. You have overwhelmingly changed, transforming, Hafak, my wailing lamentation, Misafat Any, to dancing all around, La Makhowl, for me, La Any. You have loosened and released, Batach, my sackcloth of common clothing, Sak Any, and you have girded me, Wa Azar Any, in delightful happiness and pleasurable gladness, Simcha, Mizmor 30:11, so that, as a result, Laman, I can continually sing, Zamar, of you, Ada, as honorable and rewarding, glorious and powerful, Kabod. And by never being silent or unresponsive, Wallo, damn, my God, Elohim any, forevermore, La Alam, I will continually express my appreciation to you for your influence in my life and for casting me down and then lifting me up vociferously and passionately, Yada Ada. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung /Psalm 30 verse 12. If I may be so bold, it is obvious that Dowd wanted this, no, he needed it. He knew what he had done, and he did not think he was deserving of being considered Yahowah's firstborn son and the eternal king of the universe throughout eternity. He already knew that he lacked the respect of his people. So, he pleaded with Yahowah for this opportunity. He recognized that, without it, he would forever agonize over whether he should have done more to earn his people's trust. If Yahowah allowed him to do this, to save the lives of every member of the covenant family and offer redemption to every Yisraelite, indeed, all humankind, we would view him differently, recognizing just how much he deserved our appreciation and our respect. He became our brother when he became his father's firstborn. In life, he devoted himself to defending his people, and so this act was in keeping with his character. He didn't just talk the talk better than anyone, he walked the walk. It was the gift he wanted most to offer to his father, to build his family home. It was the gift of life, of salvation, that he gave his people. And it was the ultimate gift that his father gave to his son, allowing him to do this for us. Having some appreciation for the power of these words, there are tears streaming down my cheeks as I share them with you. I have always loved and admired Dowd. More recently, I have become thrilled and honored to serve as his herald. But now, at this moment, I am humbled in his presence. My respect is immense. Yada Yahowah. While the 30th Mizmor was significantly more focused on the covenant family than it was on the dedication of Yahowah's home on Moriah, there are things that we can learn from the construction of the house and Shalomah's speech on the occasion, particularly when addressing the relationship between his father and Yahowah while readdressing the subject of homes in 2 Samuel 7. At that time, Shalomo reconciliation, Shalomo, gathered together and assembled, Kahal, the elders of Yisrael, Zakan Yisrael, with the heads of every tribe, Kol Rosh Hamet, the leadership, Nasi, of the fathers of the children of Yisrael, Abla Beni Yisrael, to the king, El-Hamelech, to Solomon in Jerusalem, Shalomo Yerushalayim, to ascend with the ark of the covenant, La, Allah, around Berith, of Yahowah, from the city of Dowd, Min, Yir Dowd, which is Tzion, High Tzion. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 1. Construction of the building on the summit of Moriah known as the First Temple had commenced 7 years earlier. And now it was time to bring the Ark of the Covenant home. This Beit Shem Yahowah was incomplete without the around Berith Yahowah. Similarly, the relevance of the Yir Dowd is that it resides on Tzion where the signs are posted along the way. The arrival of the children of Yisrael, and the Ark of the Covenant that made them special, would coincide with the Chag celebrations in the 7th month which would bring everyone back together, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. By establishing this date, Yahowah wants us to project what we are witnessing forward 3 millennia to Teruah in 2033/year 6000 Yah when the around Berith of Yahowah will return and the Beit Shem of Yahowah will be re-established in the Yir Dowd on the ridgeline of Tzion. And were gathered to King Solomon, Wakahal, El-Hamelech Shalomo, all of the men of Israel, Kol Ish Yisrael, in the lunar month, Ba Yera, of Ithan ever flowing and long established, Ithan, during the Chag celebration, Ba HaChag, of the promise of the 7th month and time of renewal, Hu HaChodesh HaShabai. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 2. This timing is relevant because Yahowah wanted to predict and showcase what would transpire in the 7th month 3,000 years later because the Teruah gleaning and sacrifice would bring Yisrael back together with Dowd and Yahowah during Kippurim in exactly the same location. And God intends for his homecoming to be a joyous Chag celebration. And all of the elders of Yisrael and the priests, Kol Zakan Yisrael HaKohen, came and lifted up the ark, Bow, Wanasa, around. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 3. They ascended with the ark, Allah, around, of Yahowah, and with the tent and tabernacle of the restoring witness to the eternal testimony, Ohomod, in addition to all of the set-apart and special vessels and implements, Kol Keli HaKodesh, which, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, were in the tabernacle, Ba HaOhel. The priests and the Loi, HaKohen Wahaloi, ascended with them, Allah, Hem. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 4. Based upon what I've seen and read, I not only envision the Temple Mount being cleansed of the Islamic trash now scarring it as Elia and I arrive on the 1st of Abib in 2030, but I also see the tabernacle of the restoring witnesses being positioned prominently on the mount over the existing footprint of the Beit Shem Yahowah. I think this is the reason that it was brought along with the Ark of the Covenant. With the house completed, it was no longer needed, but with the covenant home gone when the witnesses return, it's the perfect addition. Elia and I will reside within it over the next 3.5 years while the tabernacle serves as our home and home to the around Berith Yahowah, which our father will dust off and raise for the occasion. I suspect that the last line was redundant for a reason. Since the priests were all Loi at this time, the best explanation of why they were listed as separate and distinct is that, when Elia and then Dowd serve in the role of priest on Teruah and Kippurim, neither are Loi. And the king, Hamelech, Solomon, Shalmo, and the entire witnessing community of Yisrael, Kol Ada Yisrael, who had chosen to meet and join together, Ya'ad, over him, Alhu, were with him before the ark, Ethu, Lapana around. A goat, a bull or heifer, so and Wabakar, were sacrificed, Zabak, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher. They were not counted or proclaimed, Lo, Saphar, and they were not numbered or apportioned, Lo, Mana, from the many, Min Rab. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 5. In the first statement, it is curious that Kol Ada Yisrael, all of those providing a restoring witness to the eternal testimony on behalf of those who engage and endure with God were Alhu over and above this man playing king. This is because the same thing will occur when those who speak on behalf of Yahowah oppose the corporeal manifestation of Satan, who will claim to lord over all during Teruah in year 6000 Yah. When this is reenacted on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem on the first day of the 7th month in year 6000 Yah, there will be another supreme sovereign in Israel gathering the people together while touting his plan for religious reconciliation and political peace. Solomon is, in my judgment, a harbinger of what is to come. And from this perspective, rather than extrapolating Lo, Shapher not counted or proclaimed and Lo, Mana not numbered or apportioned as too many to be counted, I see this as prophetic of something of vital importance. On the first day of the 7th month during the 120th Yabel year, a goat named Eliah will oversee the sacrifice of Yada as the Adam Apara red heifer on behalf of the Passover lamb to restore Yisrael and prepare God's people for his imminent arrival. They are the ones counted among those who have chosen to be with God. And it is the blood of a goat and a bull that will anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant on Kippurim when Dowd returns with YAHOWAH on Kippurim, the 10th day of the 7th month. Since I recognize that it's difficult for some to grasp why YAHOWAH would use male and female names and titles for himself, for those working with him, and for those things which are vital for us to understand, I would like to share something very few consider. While men and women share 95% of the same genetic material, when the 23rd pair of chromosomes are XX, the individual is female. And every man shares the chromosome which, when paired with itself, is female. Genetically, women are amplified femininity with two X chromosomes XX. Human males have one X and one Y chromosome XY, giving us masculine and feminine characteristics, just like YAHOWAH. This is why he said that he wrote, so, God created Adam the man in his image, in the image and resemblance of God he created him, male and female he created that which is associated with them. Bears YTH/Genesis 1 verse 27. For example, when I'm in my primary role, children serving as a stem off of the tree of lives and knowledge, as the Nakar observant foreigner, the man from Down is Yada, one who knows, a man after YAHOWAH's heart. Therefore, as YAHOWAH's cowl voice and Dowd's bass are herald, my masculine qualities shine. But when I'm cultivating the harvest of covenant children as the final Zeroah, the role requires a feminine touch. And so it is with the Adam Apara bloody red man and productive heifer, giving the final remnant of Yisrael a bath and then new life. By contrast, normally, you'll find me stamping out human snakes and demonic serpents as a par bull. From this perspective, Dowd may have been the most fully integrated and expressive projection of XY. He was a songwriter, singer, lyricist, and lover overcome with emotions one moment and the strong man, valiant defender, judgmental orator, and rational thinker the next. He loved men and women. He, as a Gibor courageous and competent man, was filled with the Ruach spirit, giving him a nurturing feminine perspective. As we consider this prophetic narrative of our future, know that on the morning of September 23, 2033, Eliah will be acting in the role of Cohen as he follows the Torah's Numbers 19 instructions relative to the sacrifice to restore the children of Yisrael. The priests arrived and brought, Cohen, the Ark of the Covenant of YAHOWAH, around Berith YAHOWAH, to its innermost place of the word, El Mekam Hu Daber, of the family home, Ha-Baith, to the most set-apart place, El Kodesh Ha-Kodesh, to under the wings, El Takath Kanaf, of the cherubim, Ha-Cherubim. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 6. Since their role was twice defined, initially shown protecting Adam and Chawah in the garden and then having the backs of the covenant's children as we are afforded the opportunity to sit on the mercy seat of the ark, I am expecting cherubim to not only protect the around Berith of YAHOWAH within the Ohel Moedim tabernacle of the restoring witnesses but also to be protecting the witnesses themselves. Indeed, the cherubim, KY Ha-Cherubim, wings spread out, Paras Kanaf, to the place over the ark, El Mekam Ha around, and over its poles, Wa Al Badhu, from above, Min Lamaal. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 7. The poles alone were so long, Wa Arak Habad, that the ends of the poles were seen, Wa Rosh Habad, out of the set-apart place, Min HaKodesh, beyond the presence of the inner sanctum of the word, Al Pana HaDabir. But they could not be seen, Wa Lo Araya, from the outside, Ha-Chouts. And they existed there, Wa Hayasham, as a restoring and eternal witness, of this day, Ha-Yam Hazeh. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 8. Indeed, even though this cast of characters had ascended the ridgeline of Zion en route to the summit of Moriah, now just 11 years removed from Dowd's inspiring influence, this served as proof that they were tumbling downhill in a hurry. Dum-diddy-dum-dum, the poles were only to be inserted when carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Once in the proper position within the Beit Shem YAHOWAH, they should have been removed. While the replacement set of the 2 tablets of stone YAHOWAH engraved represented the most treasured items within the Ark, there were others. Moreover, beside the Pharaoh, if not in it for safekeeping, would have been the original autograph of the Torah scribed by Moses. It was the greatest treasure of all. There was nothing in the ark, Ein Ba Ha around, except the 2 tablets, Shanaim Loachout, of stone, Eben, that, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, Moshe, placed there, Nowak Sham, at Choreb, Ba Choreb, where, to show how to get the most out of life, Asher, he established the covenant, Kereth, of YAHOWAH, with the children of Yisrael, Beni Yisrael, by bringing them out, Ba Yatza, Hem, of the land, Min Eretz, of Mitzrayim the anguishing and confining. Crucibles of oppression, Mitzrayim. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 9. There are 2 ways to view what happens next because the home of YAHOWAH's name was immediately consumed by a cloud of smoky water vapor, and to such an extent, the Cohen were rendered even more confused and incompetent. They were kept out of the newly erected house, unable to proceed. It is my conclusion that YAHOWAH was exceedingly disappointed in Solomon's attitude and the priestly competency, and that this was his way of showing his consternation. He ran them out of the home for the covenant family because they did not belong. Further, by filling the covenant home with a massive cloud of smoke and water, YAHOWAH is bringing us forward 3,000 years in time to Towrah in year 1600 Yah. It is then that he will unleash a torrent of water beneath the sacrifice of the red heifer while igniting a fire that will send smoke billowing to the heavens. And it is all for the final Yatza, exodus from Mitzrayim, the crucibles of troubling religious and political oppression to the Beit Berith covenant family. That, however, was not Solomon's take on God fumigating his home. He did as so many have done after him, he put words in God's mouth that did not belong. But first, here is what occurred. And it came to pass when, YAHOWAH, the priests came out, Yatsa, Ha-Kohen, of the set-apart place, Ha-Kodesh, then this cloud of water and smoke, Ha-Anan, completely filled, male, the family home, Baith, of YAHOWAH, Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 10, such that the priests, Ha-Kohen, became incompetent and confused, incapable, lo, Yakal, of remaining present and standing, la, Amad. As attendants, lo, Sheriff, as a result of the presence, Min Pana, of the cloud of water and smoke, Ha-Anan. For it completely covered, KY male, Yahowah's honorable and respectful nature, Kabod YAHOWAH, within Yahowah's family home, Baith YAHOWAH. Melachim/1 Kings 8 verse 11. That does not sound inviting or welcoming to me. I prefer to see Yahowah as light rather than darkness. I'd rather understand than be confused. Given the option, competence is better than ineptitude. Since Shalomoah's response casts Yahowah in a very poor light while the king not only improperly gloated over what others had achieved while misquoting the Almighty, I see this as a harbinger of what will commence during the upcoming time of Israel's troubles. Solomon, rather than representing Yahowah or Dowd, is playing the role of the Towerless One. The corporeal manifestation of the adversary will emerge from relative obscurity over the next 3 to 5 years to world prominence. And, therefore, I think that all of this is prophetic. Then, at that moment, Shalomo reconciliation, Shalomo, said, Amar, Yahowah has stated that he would dwell, Yahowah, Amar Lashaken, in the deep gloom and miserable darkness of a thick cloud which blocks all light, Ba-ha-arapel. Dabrim Ha-Yaumim/2 Chronicles 6 verse 1. No. All God said was that during the Exodus, he would watch over and lead the children of Israel out of harm's way and to the promised land as a columnar cloud during the day and as a pillar of light by night. Yahowah is light, not darkness. This is replacement philology. Then, after sending Yahowah to the lightless realm of Sheol for a miserable and gloomy existence, and extinguishing God's light, the king turned the spotlight on himself. But I, myself, have built, Bana, a magnificent dwelling with extraordinarily beautiful construction, a celestial palace, Zabul, of a house, Baith, for you, La Ada, a dwelling place and site, Makon, for you to sit in and inhabit, La Yashab, forever, Alam. Dabrim Ha-Yaumim/2 Chronicles 6 verse 2. As I will point out in due time, Solomon didn't build the house. The support beams, stone masons, and lead contractor were all from Lebanon. And the house was actually understated, not near the scale of the imposing pyramids, ziggurats, and temples built to house pretentious kings and their false gods. Moreover, Yahowah resides in Shemaim in the 7th dimension. He's not about to be reduced to or be restrained in something men have made. And, of course, since the house was looted many times thereafter and then razed to the ground 4 centuries later, forever may not have been the proper depiction of time. But such are the wiles of men. They want gods they can control and cut down to size. But we digress, this was Solomon's time to shine. Then the king, Ha-Melech, came full circle, turning back to the beginning, Sabab, with his presence, Panahu. And he knelt down to lift up and bless, Barak, the entire assembled community, Kol Kahal, of Yisrael individuals who engage and endure with God, Yisrael, while, everyone gathered and assembled, Kol Kahal, of Yisrael, was present and standing, Amad. Dabrim Ha-Yaumim/2 Chronicles 6 verse 3. Then he said, Amar, Yahowah, the God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael, benefits and is extolled, Barak, based upon what he has communicated, Asher Daber, with his mouth, Ba-Pehu, to Dowd, Dowd, my father, of Penny. And with his hand and influence, Ba-Yadhu, he has fulfilled these proclamations, male. Dabrim Ha-Yaumim/2 Chronicles 6 verse 4. The first royal son of King Dowd was aptly named Shalomo Reconciliation because, with this unique spelling, he would be the alternative to what his father would be advancing on this day. For indeed, reconciliation is Dowd's trademark. It is also symbolic of the day Dowd will return to reclaim his throne and home, Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations. This is one of the many ways Yahowah Sabab comes full circle with his plans, bringing us back to where we began. The primary connotation of Barak is to get down on one's knees to lift someone up. It is a picture of our Heavenly Father getting down on his knees symbolically to lift up his children so that we can be empowered to walk with him. Therefore, Yisrael individuals who engage and endure with God defines what it means to be part of God's family. But do you think that this was what Solomon intended to convey? Or was the king the one offering the blessing while he claimed that Yahowah was the beneficiary of what he was doing? These are legitimate questions because very little of what Yahowah promised was fulfilled on this day. Further, since God allowed the house to be plundered and destroyed, it's rather obvious that he wasn't nearly as enamored by it as Solomon and the religious and political aspirants around him. It is worth noting that since it was claimed that Yahowah's presence was in this place on this day, please note that the entire community of Yisraelites was Amad standing. This is how it should always be between our Heavenly Father and his children. To Shalomo's credit, Yahowah's and Dowd's names were cited throughout his presentation. Our fate hinges upon what father and son discussed. It is what Yahowah and Dowd achieved and fulfilled together that transforms our lives. It had been 4 centuries since the chosen people were freed from religious and political persecution in Mitzrayim, but it was still fresh on everyone's mind. For it was said, La Amar, from the day, Min Hayam, that, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, I brought out, Yatsa, my people, and Penny, from the realm of the crucibles of troubling confinement and oppression, Min Eretz Mitzrayim, I did not choose, Lo, Bahar, a city, year, from among all of the tribes, Min Kol Shebat, of Yisrael, to build, Labana, a home, Baith, for my name, Lashem Eni, to exist, Haya, there, Sham. Further, I had not chosen, Bahar, a man, Aish, to exist as, Lahaya, a worthy, conspicuous, announced, acknowledged, and proper leader, Najid, over my people Yisrael, any Yisrael. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 5. In actuality, none of this was stated in the Torah. Shlomo was ad-libbing. Yahowah disclosed to Abraham and Yitzchak that he would build his covenant on Mount Moriah, which is now in the heart of Jerusalem. And the Torah clearly states that the Moedim would be fulfilled in the place where Yahowah's name would dwell. Further, Moses was a valiant leader of the Yisraelites during the Yatzah, and his famous prophecy in Dabrim 18 points directly to Dowd. Jerusalem and Dowd were chosen during creation, long before the exodus from Mitzrayim. Also, while there are aspects of Najid which obviously apply to Dowd, as Melech, he is more than Najid. These things known, the following is true. But now I have chosen, Bahar, with Jerusalem the source of guidance on reconciliation, Jerusalem, that my name, Shem Eni, will exist, Lahaya, here, Sham. And I have chosen, Bahar, with Dowd, Dowd, to be, Lahaya, over my people, Yisrael, any Yisrael. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 6. Jerusalem, not the Vatican or Ukraine. Dowd, not Netanyahu or Trump. This is also accurate. And it was, Wahaya, in the heart and mind, the inclination and judgment, I'm Lebab, of Dowd, my father, of Eni, to build, Labana, a home, Baith, for the name, Lashem, of Yahowah, the God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 7. Then, Yahowah, said, Amar, to Dowd, Dowd, my father, of Eni, because, it was, Haya, in your best judgment, im Lebab Ada, Dowd, my father, of Eni, to build, Labana, a home, Baith, for my name, Lashem Eni, what was in your heart and mind, ky Haya, im Lebab Ada, is beautiful, good, generous, and beneficial, Taub. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 8. While Shlomo was stumbling over his choice of pronouns and including himself in the narrative, he may also have been projecting his thoughts into a discussion that occurred apart from him. Yahowah was actually disappointed by Dowd's desire to build him a house, as is demonstrated conclusively in the text of 2 Samuel 7. Nevertheless, that notwithstanding, you will not build the house, Ada lo, Bana ha-Baith, but instead, ky, your son, Ben, Ada, the coming forth from your loins, ha-Yatzah min shalatz Ada. He will build, Bana, the home, ha-Baith, for my name, Lashem Eni. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 9. What is particularly revealing here is that the Baith was a home, not a temple, and Yahowah had no intention of living there or even occupying the premises. Its purpose was to serve as a home for his name, and yet, that was the first thing Jews removed. As for Solomon, methinks he is too impressed with himself. He was simply an implement. And it is one thing for Yahowah to give him credit for building the Baith of the Shem, it is another for him to claim it for himself. Now, Yahowah, has taken a stand to establish and fulfill, his statement, Daberhu, that, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, he has spoken, Daber. And I have taken a stand to establish and fulfill, beneath, Takhath, Dowd, my father, of Eni. And I sit, Yashab, on the throne, Al-Kais, of Yisrael, as Yahowah spoke, Ka'asher Daber Yahowah. And I have built, Bana, the home, ha-Baith, for the name, Lashem, of Yahowah, the God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 10. And I have placed, Wasim, there, Sham, the around to behold the ark, around, which beneficially and relationally, Asher, there is, Sham, the Berith covenant, of Yahowah, to show the way to get the most out of life, Asher, cut, with the children of Yisrael, I'm Beni Yisrael. Dabrim Hayalmim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 11. The positives here are that Shlomo was committed to proclaiming Yahowah's name, that he knew the building was a Beit Shem, and that he recognized he was in this position due to the relationship Yahowah developed with his father, Dowd. He also saw to it that the Ark of the Covenant was housed within the home for Yahowah's name. This is to suggest that Yahowah's Shem surrounds the around and is integrated into the Berith. Further, as we discovered in 1 Kings 8, and is affirmed in 2 Chronicles 5, the Ark of the Covenant was carried by the priests from the city of Dowd, along the ridgeline of Zion, and into the Beit Shem. It was placed in the Kodesh during the Chag of the 7th month, which would include Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. However, as I have hinted, Solomon didn't actually build the temple. The stonemasons and milled cedar and cypress beams came from Tyre and Jebel/Byblos in Lebanon. Dowd forged the alliance with King Hiram that his son capitalized upon, 1 Kings 5-9 and 2 Chronicles 2-7. To compensate Hiram for the building materials and craftsmen, Solomon sent copious amounts of grain, olive oil, and wine to Tyre. Even the lead foreman, also named Hiram, came from Tyre, although his mother was a Yisraelite of Naphtali descent. The Lebanese contribution was so considerable that at the conclusion of the project, Solomon, over and above the grain, oil, and wine, compensated Hiram by surrendering 20 cities in northeastern Israel in the swampland of Galilee to the city-state of Tyre. Although, they were seen as more of a burden than an asset to Hiram, who called them Kebel bonds and fetters. The image cast next is of Shlomo standing and then kneeling upon a platform he had built to serve as the Mizbeach altar to ponder the implications of the sacrifice of Yahowah. And he was present, standing, Amad, before the presence, Lapana, of the altar to ponder the implications of the sacrifice, Mizbeach, of Yahowah, conspicuously in the presence, Neged, of the entire gathered community, Kol Kahal, of Yisrael, Yisrael. Then he spread out, Waparas, the palms of his hands, Kafhu. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 12. Shalomo, made, Asa, a bronze platform to be used as a cauldron and basin, Kayar Nakaweth, and offered it as a gift, Wa Nathanhu, within the inner court, Ba Takha Azara, it being 5 cubits, or 8 feet, long, Chamesh Emma Orekhu, and 5 cubits, or 8 feet, wide, Wa Chamesh Emma Rokabhu, while it was 3 cubits, or nearly 5 feet, high, Wa Emma Shalash Komahu. And he stood on it, Wa Amad Alhu. Then he knelt on his knee, Wa Barak al-Barekhu, conspicuously before, Neged, all those assembled of Yisrael, Kol Kahal Yisrael. He spread out, Waparas, the palms of his hands, Waparas Kafhu, toward the heavens, Hashemaim. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 13. The altar to contemplate the implications of the sacrifice is noteworthy because of its size and location outside of the house. Not only will the bloodied body of the red heifer sit within such an elevated basin, but let's not miss that it was designed to be a cauldron. As such, a replica would serve nicely as a platform on which to burn the Adam Apara in 3,000 years, or 9 years from now in 2024. As for getting down on a knee and spreading out his hands, I'm not a fan. It goes against Yahowah's intent and instructions. But Solomon loved the attention and drama. He was playing to the crowd. He said, Wa Amar, Yahowah, Yahowah, God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael, there is nothing like you, Ayin Kamo Ada, God in the heavens and on the earth, Elohim Ba Hashemain Wa Ba Ha-Eretz, considering and exploring, Shamar, the Berith covenant, Ha-Berith, and the one showing unfailing love and devotion, genuine favor and affection, Wa Ha-Chisid, to your co-workers, La Abed Ada, who walk toward your presence, Ha-Halak Lapana Ada, with all their thinking and emotions, there. Judgment and motivations, Ba Kol Lebhem, Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 14, who, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, closely examine and carefully consider, Shamar, the approach of your co-worker, Laabed, Ada, Dowd, Dawid, my father, of any, that, to reveal the proper way, Asher, you spoke to him, Daberlahu. You spoke with your mouth, Wa Daber Ba Pa Ada, and with your hand, Wa Ba Yad Ada, you have fulfilled the essence of this, male, Ka, today, Hayam Hazeh, dot. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 15. The idea of Yahowah Shamar considering and exploring the Berith covenant family is appealing. And clearly, when doing so, God expresses his chesed love and devotion. Although, while Yahowah favors those who work with him, he is affectionate toward every covenant member. When we are completely devoted, mind and heart, intellectually and emotionally, to Yahowah, life is better. And the best way to achieve this is to do as Shalomo states, closely examine and carefully consider Dowd's approach to Yahowah. That said, very little of the essence of what Yahowah shared with Dowd was completed or fulfilled on this day. Then if only. Now, therefore, Wa Ada, Yahowah, Yahowah, God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael, observe, Shamar, on behalf of your co-worker, La Ebed Ada, Dowd, my father, Dawid, of any, what you, for the benefit of the relationship, spoke to him, Eth Asher Daberlahu, to say, La Amar, not will cut off for you, Lo, Karat La Ada, a person, Aish, from before me, Min La Pana any, to sit on the throne, Yeshab al-Kais, of Yisrael, Yisrael, if only under the restrictive condition, Rak Im. Your sons, Beni Ada, observe, closely examining and carefully considering, Shamar, their way to walk, Eth Derek Hemla Halak, in my Torah guidance and teaching, instructions and directions, Ba Torah any, consistent with the beneficial way, Ka Asher, you have walked before me, Halak Lapana any. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 16. That didn't happen, but it was prophetic. Solomon failed to live up to this bargain, and as a result, the throne of a united Yisrael would soon be unoccupied. And even then, virtually every leader of the northern kingdom and of Yehudah failed in this regard. But on the positive side, this statement does affirm that Dowd was resolutely Torah observant. And it was by walking in the Torah that Dowd's life became so exemplary. There can be no now therefore when the conditions pursuant to the agreement are not met. Nonetheless. Now, therefore, Wa Ada, Yahowah, Yahowah, God of Yisrael, Elohim Yisrael, let your word be trustworthy and dependable, enduring and true, Amon Daber Ada, which, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, you spoke, Daber, to your co-worker, Dowd, La Ebed Ada La Dawid. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 17. Since Ammon was conveyed in a just volitional mood, Solomon is saying that he and those gathered before him wanted Yahowah's testimony to be truthful and dependable. And while that may have tickled the ears of the faithful and religious, it was a terrible thing to say. It implies that God has the option of reneging on his promises and of being misleading. It creates the impression that Yahowah can be disingenuous and capricious, both of which are required for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Had Solomon been as wise as his father, he would have rendered this next pronouncement as a statement rather than a question. And he would have used his earlier statements regarding this being a home for Yahowah as Shem to explain its purpose and describe the resident. Except, is it actually possible, Ky ha-umnam, for God, Elohim, to dwell or even sit, Yashab, with the men like Adam, Eth ha-Adam, on the earth, al-ha-Eretz? Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 18 in part. Yes, it is possible for God to dwell with his covenant family on earth. That is what occurred between Yahowah and Adam in the garden. It is the point of the Mikra-Ey, and particularly of Kippurim and Sukkah. This is something Solomon should have known since his father will serve as king over the earth when it is transformed back into the conditions experienced in Eden. Behold, Hina, the heavens, Shemaim, and the heavens of the heavens, Washemaim Hashemaim, cannot hold or contain you, lo, Kol Ada, so much more by contrast, Fky, this house, Ha Beth Hazeh, that, Asher, I have built, Bana. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 18 conclusion. Shemaim is plural, so it is simply verbose to say, Shemaim Washemaim Hashemaim. And while there are lexicons which claim that the notion of heaven is derived from the idea that Shama means lofty. But I disagree since Shemaim shares the SHM root of Shem name, Shamat listen, and Shamar observe. Therefore, it is more likely that when we listen to and observe what is said in the name of our God, we are more likely to live with him. Shemaim is not a prison like Sheol, so it does not have the capacity to hold or contain anyone. Further, while we exist in 3.5 dimensions as physical beings encumbered by bodies, when we become akin to light, we will be liberated in spacetime. And it is my conclusion, having studied Dowd's 19th Mizmor, that the universe is a 6-dimensional construct and that Shemaim exists in the 7th dimension. And while all of Yahuwah, as a 7-dimensional being, won't fit in the physical universe he created, much less on earth, in a house, or a corporeal body, there is a solution that achieves the desired result. First, a tiny portion of spiritual energy can be transformed into matter and, thus, a body through Einstein's equation E = mc². Second, Yahuwah, like all living beings capable of observing and responding, has a Nepesh soul for this purpose. When it is placed within a spiritual or physical being, it projects that individual's personality and individuality, their character and characteristics, their memories, experiences, and ambitions, somewhat like an avatar. This is how Yahuwah walked in the garden with Adam. It is how he dined with Abraham. It is how he will return with Dowd. Also telling in this regard, it was by reconstituting Dowd's basar corporeal body through his DNA and then inserting his Nepesh consciousness into it that the king was able to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. This is how Yahuwah will dispatch Yada and Thelyah from Shemaim to earth to serve as witnesses. Shalomo was no doubt wise by human standards, but it is readily apparent that he could not hold a candle to his father. Apart from what Solomon will announce prophetically in the 32nd and 33rd statements of this speech, which were spoken at an entirely different level, there is very little of what Dowd's son said or wrote that is worthy of our consideration, at least on face value as a historic record. He was too full of himself to make room for Yahuwah in his life. And all too often, when he gave God lip service, it was just for show. Therefore, this is important because it is prophetic. As we proceed, we are confronted by one of the more challenging Hebrew terms, tapla. It is routinely rendered as prayer in English Bibles even though its etymological basis suggests no such thing. And while the popular Strong's Hebrew lexicon claims that tapla was based upon pelo to intervene, intercede, and mediate, the more reasonable deduction would be pala to be distinct and separate, distinguished and wonderfully uncommon, or even palak to revere and serve. Then when we expand our consideration to the ta prefix, it could be a contraction of ta'a to err and wander away, with an ayin and thus unlikely, ta'a to mark or point out, with an aleph, to desire, or ta, room or chamber. Therefore, the most reasonable deduction from its component parts would be to render tapla as, to point out the means to be distinct and separate, set apart and wonderfully special. Also possible, but less probable, tapla means, to mark out the way to intervene and intercede. But either way, there is no Hebrew word for pray or prayer because Yahuwah solicits neither. This known, throughout what follows, the man whose propensity be religious rather than promote the relationship his father fostered and who, as a result, was largely responsible for appending the camaraderie Dowd had built between Yahuwah and a united Yisrael, uses pelo in ways that beg being rendered as prayer. In fact, much of what follows is dripping in drama that does not belong anywhere near the home of the covenant. Yet, you turn to face and appear, panah, for the pointing out of the means to be distinct and separate, set apart and uncommon, tapla, of your co-worker, ebed ada, and to his plea and petition for favor, to kinahu, Yahuwah, my God, Elohim eni, for listening, lashama, to the rejoicing shouts and pleading, el harina, and to the pointing out of the means to be distinct and separate, set apart and uncommon, tapla, that your co-worker, Asher ebed ada, mediates, arbitrates, and intervenes, pelo, toward your presence, lapana ada. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 19. That's about as clear as mud. Yahuwah does not turn. It is men and women who must panah to become set apart. Consistent with this mistake, Shalomo has it backward. We benefit when we listen to Yahuwah and typically impugn ourselves when we ask him to listen to us, especially in prayer. In fact, Yahuwah is on record stating that the Towralists who pray to him have dung on their faces. And if we are being objective, while Dowd Pelo intervened for us on Pesach and Matzah, his son never did. So, at best, the message is muddled. If the Tekina favor Solomon is requesting is for Yahuwah's eyes to be constantly viewing the house, then it is a request that God could not heed. There is far more to the world than a single building, no matter how special. And this one would not stand. Further, the souls of the men and women who work with Yah to achieve his purpose are far more interesting to him. Affirming this, Yahuwah is on record stating that he will never look away from his son, Dowd. So, your eyes, Ein Ada, will be, Haya, open, Pathak, to the house, El Ha-Beth Hazeh, day and night, Yomam Walael, to the place where, El Ha-Makam, Asher, you have said to place, Amar Lasim, your name, Shem Ada, there so that you can listen, Shem Lashama, to the prayer to be distinct and separate, set apart and uncommon, Ha-Tapla, that your co-worker, Asher Ebed Ada, independently prays for intervention, Pelo, toward this place, El Ha-Makam Hazeh. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 20. Wrong again. God isn't continually staring at the building that was corrupted by his people and destroyed by their foes. And God does not ask for or listen to prayers. Further, it is foolish to ask Yahowah to intervene in ways that are consistent or inconsistent with his testimony. By doing so, the petitioner either demonstrates that they don't know or don't trust God's promises or that they don't care what he said because they want the Almighty to capitulate to their agenda. It pains me to criticize Solomon. He was Dowd's son, and I serve his father. And although he was selected by Yahowah, it is apparent that it was because he became an exemplar of poor judgment. That notwithstanding, his prophetic testimony at this moment is clearly stated, surprisingly specific and completely accurate, making all of this a troubling anomaly. But nevertheless, this is what he said and much of it is inconsistent with the Torah. Therefore, we cannot let it pass without comment, especially since it gets worse. And so you should listen, Washama, to the pleas for mercy and requests for favors, El Takanin, of your co-worker, Ebed Ada, and of your people Yisrael, Ada Yisrael, when, Asher, they pray for mediation and arbitration or furnish justification, Palo, to this place, El Hamakam Hazeh. And you, yourself, should continually listen, Ada Shama, from the place of your dwelling, Min Mikam Yashab Ada, from the heavens, Min Hashemayim. Then you listen, Washama, and you forgive, Wasalak. Dabrim Hayamim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 21. King Shaul didn't go this far afield of the Torah and Yahowah openly disenfranchised him. Yahowah isn't a genie in a bottle, ready to turn wishes into on-demand gifts. We ought not tell God to listen to us nor request favors from him. And this is largely because we learn and mature when we listen to him, and the favors we need bestowed, he has already provided. Most especially, Yahowah does not listen and forgive. Those seeking entry to heaven by having their guilt removed need to approach God in the manner he has articulated and facilitated. And since Shalomo's father was the chief provider, he, of all people, should have known better. Quite frankly, I don't know what to make of the following. The only way to expunge guilt is by relying upon what Dowd did to remove it during Matzah. And there is no telling why Solomon repeated Allah curse so many times in this statement. The only curse that men and women bring on themselves is a result of overtly opposing Yahowah or the Torah. And while there is no excuse for deceiving a neighbor, what does any of this have to do with the dedication of the covenant home? If a man errs and does wrong, incurring guilt, imchada, aish, with his neighbor, la rea hu, and he is deceptive with him, wanasha, ba hu, a curse is sworn regarding him, Allah Allahu. Then comes a curse or oath, wabau Allah, to the presence, lapana, of your altar, mizbeach ada, in this house, ba habeth hazeh, dabrim hayamim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 22, so you continually listen, washama, from the heavens, min hashemayim, and you act, wa asa, and you judge, washapat, your co-workers, ebed ada, to return and restore, lashab, the wickedly guilty and condemnable religiously, la rasha, by allowing or giving, la Nathan, his way in his head, derek hu, ba. Rosh hu, so as to acquit and vindicate the correct and upright, wa latzadak tzadik, by giving to him, la Nathan lahu, according to him being right, katzadakahu. Dabrim hayamim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 23. As confusing as was the initial sentence, the follow-on declaration is a complete enigma. God does not want us bringing curses to him or to the place where the sacrifices are contemplated. Thankfully, he does not constantly listen from the heavens. If he did, we'd all be doomed and he would have given up on humankind long ago. Yahowah has no reason to ever judge his co-workers. By the time we are engaged doing God's bidding and working with him, we are most certainly covenant. Therefore, a co-worker is never restored. Moreover, the wickedly guilty do not return. There is no allowance for the religiously condemnable. Similarly, our way is irrelevant to God and it has no influence on our salvation. Finally, there is no explanation for Shalomo's transition from the wicked and cursed to the acquitted and vindicated, making this much like a word salad. This may not be any better, and might be worse. And if your people, Yisrael, are plagued, afflicted, and defeated, im negaf ada Yisrael, before the presence of an adversary, lapana oyeb, because they have missed the way and are wrong, ky chada, regarding you, la ada, and they return and acknowledge by confessing, shub yada, your name, shem ada, and they furnish justification or pray for intervention, palo, and they plead for pity and favors and generosity, chanan, to approach your presence, la. Pana ada, in this house, ba habeth hazeh, dabrim hayamim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 24, then, you, yourself, must constantly listen, ada shama, from the heavens, min hashemayim, and you should be indulgent and forgiving, so as to pardon, salak, the offensive sins and wrongdoing associated with missing the way, lachada, of your people, Yisrael, ada Yisrael, and you return them to the earth or ground, shubhem, el ha-adama. That, for the benefit of the relationship, you gave to them. Asher Nathan lahem, and to their fathers, la, abhu. Dabrim hayamim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 25. To be negav plagued is to be religious. It is viral, pandemic, and deadly. It mandates that the infected be isolated and quarantined. The only cure is to cleanse oneself of all contaminated material, avoid all future contact, and then capitalize on Dowd's cure during Chag Matzah, none of which Solomon mentioned. Confession is a waste of time. And there is no return independent of the way Yahowah has provided. Apart from what Dowd accomplished by fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, there is no intervention. And pleading for favors is among the surest ways to irritate God. His provision is there for the accepting. Either take it or leave it, but don't ask God for a special dispensation. Even today, 3,000 years later, neither Yehudim nor Yisraelites have had the decency, good manners, or sense to embrace Yahowah's name. This is a necessary first step in coming home. However, the house of the name cannot be the source of forgiveness. The building erected during Solomon's reign beginning in 968 BCE was plundered in 926 BCE by Pharaoh Shoshenkai. It was looted a century later by Yisraelite king Jehosh, who broke through a wall to carry away many of the remaining implements and treasures. Thereafter, when King Ahaz of Judah was threatened by Rezin of Damascus, he bribed King Tiglath-Pileser IV to defend him by offering the silver and gold in the house of YAHOWAH. Even King Hezekiah plundered the house, cutting off the gold from the doors and doorsteps to bribe King Sennacherib, also of Assyria. While the Beit Shem was restored under King Joash, with the funding derived from popular donations, it would not endure. The building was plundered by King Nebuchadnezzar II of Neo-Babylon in 598 BCE. A decade later, Nebuchadnezzar, following a 30-month siege, breached the walls of Jerusalem in 587/6 BCE. He and his men looted the city and torched it over the next year, demolishing the building that had withstood the angst and greed of kings for 400 years. With God, man's prayers and justifications fall on deaf ears. Truth be known, Yahowah's presence was seldom in the house of his name. And as previously stated, it is in our interests to listen to God rather than expect him to listen to us. God is not indulgent or particularly forgiving. His plan has always been to remove our guilt by having his son take it to Sheol, never to be seen again. Without evidence against us, we appear innocent and perfect, without the need for forgiveness. It is curious that Shlomo would speak of Shubhem El Ha-Adamah returning them to the earth or ground. They were currently united and living in peace in Yisrael. Further, Adamah means ground, whereas the land of Yisrael is characterized by Eretz. Therefore, this may have been prophetic. Recognizing that this speech coincides with Teruah's approach to Kippurim and Sukkah, and that it is the Adamah Para who will actually resolve this issue of Yisrael's collective and individual guilt as part of their return to YAHOWAH, the reference is likely the red heifer, the Adamah bloody red man on the ground. This is underscored by the realization that it is for the benefit of the relationship God offered to them and to their fathers. As we press on, Solomon addresses the lack of rain, and thus of living waters, something YAHOWAH will provide in overwhelming quantities for those who will have missed the way during Teruah in year 1600 Yah. With the heavens being held back, Ba Atzar HaShemaim, and there is no rain, Walo, Hayamatar, because they have missed the way to you, Ky Chada La Ada, and then they pray for intervention toward this place, Ky Palo El Hamakam Hazeh, and they acknowledge while expressing appreciation for your name, Yada, Eth Shem Ada, from their guilt attributable for missing the way, Min Chada, they will return, Shub, because you will either answer or afflict them, Ky Anahem. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 26. I suppose that this could be prophetic of Teruah in 1600 Yah. Many will begin proclaiming YAHOWAH's name. And those who seek a remedy for their guilt at that time will find intervention through the red heifer. This is YAHOWAH's answer for those who wish to return. Then you, yourself, will constantly listen, Wa Adashama, in the heavens, Hashemaim, and you will purge them, Wa Salak, of the offensive sin and resulting guilt, Lachadath, of your co-workers, Ebed Ada, and your people, Yisrael, Wa Em Ada Yisrael, because you will teach and guide them, Ky Yarahem, toward the way which is beneficial, productive, and pleasing, El Ha Derek Hatal, which they should walk in it, Asher Halak Ba High, and give rain upon your land, Wa Nathan Matar. Al Eretz Ada, which you gave to your people, Asher Nathan La Em Ada, as an inheritance, La Nakla. Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 27. Should this be addressing Yom Teruah's fulfillment, then YAHOWAH will be listening at that time, while he wasn't then or thereafter. However, on the eve of his return, and as a result of his co-workers, particularly Elia and Yada, he will teach and guide his people, placing his Torah within the remnant of Yisrael. This is the benefit of the red heifer and the rejuvenating waters that will emerge beneath his sacrifice to cleanse and restore life throughout the land. Thereupon, YAHOWAH will allocate his inheritance to his people. As we proceed, Shlomo is becoming ever more prophetic with his pronouncements. For example, during the 7 years of Yisrael's troubles prior to the fulfillment of Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah in year 1600 Yah, the land and its people will be plagued, blighted, and torched by all manner of swarming pests, human cockroaches if you will, with the death cult of Islam oppressing the land and infecting the people with the sickness of their religion while progressives spread the mind virus of socialist politics. Yehudim will plead for intervention, for some sign of divine favor, but apart from those who catch the last flight out of town during the Teruah gleaning, they will have to wait until the following morning to assuage their physical trauma and mental anguish. Since a replica of the Tabernacle of the Restoring Witness will be erected on the Temple Mount on April 4, 2030 as the witnesses arrive, those struggling to survive the last 3.5 years of Israel's anguish will have the semblance of something to reach out to after thousands of years otherwise. And those who turn to Yah will find God ready to receive this remnant of his people. Indeed, famine will exist, Arab Ky Haya, in the land, Ba Ha Eretz, plague and pestilence, also, there will be blight and scorching heat, Ky Haya Shittophone, crop failures and fungal infections, Wa Yerikaun, locusts, caterpillars, and cockroaches, Arbe Wabasil. Surely, Ky, their adversaries and enemies, Oyebhu, will oppress them, Ky Haya Ky Tsererlahu, in the land and at their gates, Ba Eretz Shayarhu. Every assault and pandemic, every sickening disease, Kol Niga, Wa Kol Machala, Dabrim HaYaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 28, will prompt many pleas for intervention, even isolation, Kol Tabla. Everywhere there will be requests for assistance and favors, Kol Takina, such that it becomes pervasive among all people, Asher Haya La Kol Ha Adam. And for the entirety of your people, Yisrael, Wala Kol, and Ada Yisrael, each man will be keenly aware of his personal afflictions, Asher Yada, Ish Niga, who, of his pain, physical traumas, and emotional anguish, Wa Mekobihu. And so he will stretch out his hands, Wa Paras Kof who, toward the family home, El Ha Beit Hazeh. Dabrim Hayaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 29. This time is upon us. The cockroaches will soon return but in far greater numbers. The fungal infections are mind viruses, particularly progressive ideology and Islam. This incredibly insane and hypocritical alliance of opposites has become the greatest threat to Jewish existence. What follows, however, has not yet occurred and will not until the first day of the 7th month in the weeks before the 7th millennium, when the plight of humans outside of the garden will be resolved. From his dwelling place in Shemaim, Yahuwah will not only listen as Towrah is being fulfilled, he will act. And as a result, the entire surviving remnant of Yisrael whose ways become aligned with Yah's will be pardoned as a result of the red heifer. Then you, yourself, will hear from the heavens, Wa Adashama Hashemaim, your dwelling place, Makon Yashab Ada, and you will provide a pardon, Wa Salak, and give to each individual, Wa Nathan Laha Aish, according to all of his ways, Ka Kol Derekhu, whose inclinations and judgment you know, Asher Yada, Eth Lebabhu. Indeed, you, only you, Ky Adalabad Ada, know the hearts and minds, Yada, Eth Lebab, of the children of humankind, Beni Ha Adam. Dabrim Hayaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 30. It will be a judgment call, one only Yahuwah will be able to make as he determines in the days before his arrival, with Dowd who stays and who goes. With the waters pouring off of the Temple Mount, with the flames burnishing the sky, and the smoke rising to the heavens, some will dance and others will drown, some will breathe and others will suffocate. But make no mistake, throughout the 4,000-year history of Yisrael, there has been no time in which the majority, much less everyone, came to respect and revere Yahuwah. This will occur for the first time during the homecoming and family reunion on Yom Kippurim, sunset in Jerusalem, October 2, 2033. Therefore, Laman, they will come to respect and revere you, Yair Ada, then they will walk in your ways, La Halak Ba Derek Ada, all of the days that they live, Kol Hayam Asher Hem Che, upon the presence of the earth, Al Panaha, Adama, that you gave, Asher Nathan, to our fathers, La of Anaknu. Dabrim Hayaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 31. Far fewer than 1 in a million have walked in Yahuwah's ways up to this point in time. Moses and Dowd are preeminent examples, but so are men like Shamuel, Yashaya, Yirmiah, Zechariah, Yael, Malachi, and the returning Eliah. This, however, will soon change when the entire surviving remnant of God's people capitalize on Towrah and Kippurim and participate in Sukkah. This will be the last chance to come clean, to walk with Yahuwah, and to inherit the benefits of the covenant. And so, to encourage Yisrael to capitalize on this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Shalomo prophetically pronounces that there will be another. After 2,448 years, a Nakri-observant foreigner, Yashaya's choder and man from Hidam, will walk out of the pages of the Torah and into the lives of God's people. Beyond all of this, Wagam, moreover, besides, and finally, regarding someone else, the observant and discerning, especially responsive, foreigner from a different ethnicity and geographic location who will come to understand, El Hanekri, pursuant to someone from a different place and culture, speaking a different language, who, having paid attention will comprehend and respond, from Naker, one who, by being attentive and astute, will come to be acquainted, recognize, and acknowledge. Something which deserves our highest regard and respect, who, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, is not of your people, Lo, Min, Am, Ada, this Yisrael, Yisrael who. He will come, Wa Bao, he will actually arrive at a moment in time, Cal perfect third person masculine singular, from a distant country after a long interval of time, Min, Eretz Rachok, for the express purpose of being a witness and voicing answers regarding, Laman, your, Ada, vitally important, Hagadol, name, Shem, and your influence, as your hand, Wayat Ada, as an influential troubadour, a prepared and resolute person willing to engage in battle, Hachazak, and, Wa, as your. Zeroah, one cultivating the seed sown for your harvests, Zeroah, Ada, one who is fruitful in his ways, sowing the seeds which take root and grow while denoting and advancing the purpose of the arm of God, of his shepherd, and sacrificial lamb, whom you have extended, Ha-Neda. When, Wa, he arrives on the scene and chooses to pursue this, Bao, he comes at that moment in time, Cal perfect third person, then, Wa, apart from political or religious influence, he will help interested parties reconcile their relationship by providing those who exercise good judgment with the requested information and justifications to make a reasoned decision pursuant to this intervention, Palel. He will serve as an intercessor for some and pronounce judgment of others, Hitpiel perfect. Third person, regarding the familial relationship and family home, El Habaith Hazeh. Dabrim Hayaumim / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 32. This is how all that Shalomo has addressed will be resolved and accomplished. His father's herald as the final Zeroah would come at long last and restore the relationship with Yahuwah that Yisraelites had broken millennia ago. Listen to him because the Nakri observant foreigner and Zeroah, one cultivating the harvests, is the cowl voice of God in advance of Yahuwah's return. When you hear as if out of the heavens, listen to what comes out of the spiritual realm, Wa Adashama, Min Hashemaim, within the location where you live, no matter where you are, Min Makon Yashab Ada, then, Wa, engage and act accordingly, doing everything, Asa Ka Kol, which, to show the way, Asher, the Nakri observant and responsive foreigner from a different ethnicity and geographic location who understands. Ha Nakri, this man from a different place and culture, speaking another language who is uniquely discerning, has proclaimed and invited you to read, summoning you, Kara El Ada, for the express purpose of serving as a witness, a teacher who provides answers such that, Laman, all peoples of the earth, Kol, and Ha Eretz, will have a genuine and ongoing opportunity to become familiar with Yada, to know, acknowledge, accept, and understand, Yada, your name, Eth Shem Ada, coming to respect and revere you, Wala Yair Eth Ada, simultaneously along with, Ka. And also, so that, Wallah, they may know, acknowledge, accept, and appreciate, Yada, that, truthfully, KY, your family and this house, al-Habayth Hazeh, which to reveal the correct path to walk to give life, meaning that, Asher, I have built for the family, Bana, are designated and called, invited and welcomed, Kara, by your name, Shem, Ada. Dabrim ha-Yaumim / Words of the Days / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 33. Other than Yahuwah speaking directly to all humanity in his own voice, which isn't possible in this context because he's not a Nakri foreigner, imagine the wonderment in the minds of those listening to Solomon 3,000 years ago, trying to ascertain how this could even be possible. Since God is not the voice out of the sky, and has pledged not to do so again without speaking through someone, they could not have foreseen the recent development of the internet that would make it possible for everyone on earth to be able to listen and benefit concurrently. Even then, they would not have understood why God would speak through a foreigner to Yisrael and to Goim concurrently, from outside of Yisrael, and in a language other than Hebrew. But now you know the end of the story. It is interesting that this prophecy speaks of both listening to a voice that appears to come out of the ether and reading what the Nakri has written. I have an audio archive of thousands of hours of radio programs and a written legacy of 35 books. It is a tally unmatched by anyone, particularly on the subject being discussed, which is Yahuwah, Yisrael, the Torah, Berith, and Beit Shem. And as I write these words in November of 2024, I am in the process of transitioning from translator and writer to broadcaster as I give voice to Yahuwah's words. The capability to do so is now integrated into our lives, with the average individual spending 7 hours a day listening, looking, and reading that which they have selected from the cloud. Yet, consider the unlikely intersection of someone thousands of years and thousands of miles from Yisrael, a complete stranger in a distant place and time, becoming so enthralled with Yahuwah's words that he would compose 20,000 pages of insights on the Torah, YYV3C3, and Berith, all gleaned by translating Yahuwah's testimony into the lingua franca of the world, the language spoken by more Yehudim than Hebrew, somehow coming upon the realization that Dowd is the son of God. Yahuwah is Mashiach and Melech, while also serving as the Zeroah. As is the case with the Choder secondary stem and sucker composing the Nes banner, Yahuwah isn't calling anyone's attention to my life but, instead, the presentation of his words that emerge from our collaboration. The only achievements of the Nakri observant and discerning foreigner that matter are the books and message presented under the Yahuwah brand. I am doing what Solomon attempted on this day, citing the promises Yahuwah made to Moses and Dowd on behalf of Yisrael. But I have an advantage beyond even the recorded words of Moses, Yahushua, Shamuel, and Dowd, the 7 spirits of Yahuwah combined with the 7 prophets Yashaya, Yirmiah, Haushah, Chabakuk, Zechariah, Yoel, and Malachi, even those of my partner, Eliah. 3,000 years ago, Yahuwah revealed that he would use a Gentile to reach his people and call them home. He would even endorse what he would write and say, telling Yehudim to do as he said, recognizing that this Nakri would, Naker, come to know him by being observant, that he would understand by being discerning. He would explore by closely examining and carefully considering the Torah, Nabi, Mizmor the guidance, prophets, and songs to Yada Yahowah. Revealing the proper pronunciation and importance of knowing God's name. This is why Yah wanted his message written in English, the language spoken by more Jews and Gentiles than any other. It is why the proper assessment of Moses and Dowd is so vital to Yah. It is why Yahuwah turned to a Nakri known as Yada to awaken Yisrael. It is the one and only time that God asked his people to engage based on what a foreigner had to say. And that is because this Nakri would serve as a lama and witness and teacher, as someone providing the answers which can be kara, read and recited on behalf of all people, especially Yisrael. Beyond the written translations and insights found in an introduction to God, Yada Yahowah, observations, coming home, Babel, Twistianity, and goddamn religion, even beyond the reach of Yah's word recited throughout Yada Yah radio and social media outreach through YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X, this is also inferring that Yada will be invited to serve alongside Eliah as the final witness during the time of Jacob's troubles, Malachi 4 verse 5 and Zechariah 4 verse 14. Beyond all of this, there is but one reason that the Nakri observant and discerning foreigner in a faraway place and time would have been introduced and authenticated by Yahuwah during the dedication of his covenant home. Yahuwah wants Yisrael, and the world at large, to consider what his Zeroah has translated and shared because the information, insights, and perspective he is providing are relevant and credible, valid and reconciling, and indeed dependable and trustworthy. He has thoughtfully considered what Dowd has accomplished by fulfilling Chag Matzah and is willing to acknowledge and properly credit the Passover lamb for the first time since the prophets long ago. Yada is devoted to cultivating the remaining harvests, such that there will be a productive Shabuah Katzer followed 7 years later by a hard-fought Teruah Lakot. Then, as the Adam Apara, the Nakri will lay down his life for the remnant of Yisrael. His blood and ashes will cleanse the adulterous woman. Yahuwah will come home, as will Dowd, and they will enjoy their family reunion. By investigating something others were afraid to even consider, the Nakri became so uniquely relevant to knowing Yahuwah, to appreciating what he is offering, and to recognizing what he is asking in return, that God saw fit to validate his Lama and witness to his Shem, to the Torah, Nabi, Mizmor, to the Berith and YYV3C3, to Yisrael and Yehudim, and most of all, to his Bekar, HaMashiach, Ara'ah and Melech, the Zeroah, Dowd. Yod Hey Waheh.